Welcome to Mpowered Living. I'm Sheu. On this podcast, innovative leaders and visionary experts share insights and practical tools for work, family, and marriage. Each episode, we'll explore how to elevate your life while staying grounded in what truly matters to you. You're working hard to navigate relationships, build a thriving family, and create a legacy of purpose. We're here to help you do that with confidence and intentionality. So if you're ready to live a life by design, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Welcome back to Mpowered Living. I'm your host, Sheu, and my guest today is Mark Fenner. Mark is a scaling up coach who helps entrepreneurs and leadership teams build companies that grow with more clarity, profit, freedom, and purpose. In this episode, we talk about why so many business owners hit a wall as they scale. Specifically, we dive into the struggle of niching down, delegating well, and letting go of being at the center of every decision. And Mark shares practical insight on how leaders can stay focused on outcomes, build stronger teams, and create more intentional alignment in both business and family life. This is a thoughtful, practical conversation about leadership, growth, and what it takes to really build something meaningful and sustainable. Let's dive in. Mark, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thank you, Ann. It's great to be here.
I would love to just dive right in because I know that you are a wealth of knowledge. So I know that you've been working as a scaling up coach for a long time. You've had a front row seat to how businesses grow and where leaders will tend to hit walls. What is it that you see where leaders get stuck most often, and why is that happening?
Oh, great question. I think there's two things, and I'm going to speak from leaders that are building companies because that's predominantly where I focus. I tend to focus on middle market companies. So typically my typical customer is 100 employees or more. So, clearly they're smart people. Clearly they know how to, run a business. They know how to hire people. They know how to add value to people. But what causes them to get stuck, what I see over and over again, is number one, a failure to niche, and number two, a failure to delegate. So, sameness is the mother of commoditization. And you can make a good living being like everybody else. So there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you can make a good living. But for those that get to a point and then are like, why can't we go further? We've got to say no to some things that maybe worked for us in the past and really focus on how do we truly become unique and valuable to a niche that we want to serve. And then the second thing is that failure to delegate. And, depending on how smart a person is and how much capacity a person has, and I've worked with people that just have a tremendous amount in both of those areas. I mean, you can build a really, really, really successful business, kind of being the center of it all and having all decisions come to you. But at some point, you're going to get stuck.
Yeah.
And for some entrepreneurs, that's 20 people. For others, it's 200. But at some point, you're eventually going to get stuck. And so just learning to let go and to trust and to build through people is what I have seen has really been one of the success secrets for those that really want to keep scaling and go along.
Yeah. Okay. Let's dive into each of those because I feel like we could spend an hour talking about each of those alone, but let's start with this failure to niche. I think there's two things that are happening. One is there's a fear of I am afraid of getting too nichey, right? So there's that fear. And then the other thing that I feel like might be happening is this uncertainty of, well, what if this extra thing that feels like it's kind of relevant, this, tangent type product would actually be where our business is supposed to go. And so this lack of clarity, uncertainty of is this something that we should be pursuing? And then they dabble in it. And then they found themselves doing, 5 different things that they were not supposed to be doing, but because they were curious, because they got distracted by the shiny object and thought, oh, well, additional revenue stream. Let's try it. And then, so what is your advice to an entrepreneur that is one kind of grappling with this fear of getting too nichey and like, well, what if there's not enough business in this niche to sustain? And then the second thing is like around how to know the difference between something they should pursue and versus stay in their lane.
Yeah, great questions, and I think you've nailed the issue. I do think in many cases it's rooted in a fear, and it's rooted in a habit of
Mm,
what's worked for me in the past. And as you know, as a startup, I mean, you're just hungry for business, so you're going to take anything from anybody. You're going to hire anybody with a pulse that wants to work for you. I mean, you're a lot of entrepreneurs start very scrappy, right? We're just going to
mhm,
take whatever we can and we'll figure it out later. Let's get it on the books and we'll figure out how to make it successful later. And so that's been a success secret. And I've
mm,
seen some entrepreneurs build some pretty big organizations on that mindset. But again, at some point you're going to just hit a wall where there's only so far that we can go with that model. So to address that fear, what I try to get them to think about is the 80-20 rule. So I'm not saying say no to everything, but start saying no to that stuff that's clearly outside. Think of it as a bullseye,
mm,
right? The bullseye right in the center is where our ideal client profile is, that values the ideal products or services that we want to market in the way we want to do it, right? They're where we make the most money. It's where our team gets the most energy. It's the work we feel like we were just meant to do. And then as we get farther out from that bullseye, we start to strain a little bit. So I like to think of, let's think of those concentric rings. How many of those would make up, that ideal client profile? And let's look to do 80% of our business in that space. And then let's use the other 20% to take risks and try new products and
mm.
services, or try new offerings, or try new markets, or try new niches. So we can continue to innovate within that, but let's start to narrow our focus. And I really learned this lesson. I started my company in 2011, and one of the first people that I called when I started was a friend of mine named Jeff York, and he had started a company with Chad Richards called Paycom. And at the time, they were a payroll processing company. And Paycom was built on this promise that you would enter an employee once and it would your entire system, and you never had to re-enter them again. So they were going to own all their software as they built their company. And the first customer of Jess was a small little Mexican restaurant, actually in Flower Mound, and just soulpreneur. But they had grown, and by this time they were over 100 million. They were starting to really break into the larger and larger enterprises. And to serve those larger enterprises, they needed a full suite of products. And so Jeff was having this debate with Chad of, do we bolt on these other products to allow us to compete in these other markets to help us continue to grow? Jeff had the big, heavy, sales target on his back. And ultimately the decision that was made was, no, we're not going to violate those core values, that core brand promise that we were founded upon. And we're going to stay true to what we can serve today. So we're going to say no to what might seem like a shiny object, to use your language. And we're going to say yes to where we know we can compete. We know we can deliver on our promise. We know we can build value, and it continues to build our flywheel. Well, today, as you probably know, Paycom's a $1 billion company with a $30 billion plus market cap. And so that was one of the decisions that they made along that journey that's really paid great dividends, that, in my opinion, allowed them to go on and really dominate the niche they're in and create the kind of enterprise that they knew they were capable of creating.
Yeah, love that. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, let's talk about that other piece, the delegation piece, because I feel like even though I teach delegation to my clients, it's still something I struggle with. And so, I was we brought in my good friend Terry Pham, and he actually did a talk about delegation. And one of the things that he said to our clients was that where are you holding on to something because you like to do it, but you're not really the best person to do it? And is that actually a procrastination tactic, right? Like not delegating, like there's a lot of low hanging fruit. That stuff is easy to delegate, the stuff that you're not good at. But he was telling me about how, yeah, like there's probably stuff on your plate that you're not delegating because you think you might be okay at it and you like doing it, but it's actually a procrastination tactic. And kind of felt like a big light bulb moment because I was thinking, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I'm still doing myself, but I'm just doing it because I'm procrastinating on the harder thing that I really should be doing.
Yeah, that's an interesting take on it. I've never heard the procrastination kind of take on it, but I can see that it's mental. It's a I think it comes back to what you said earlier. It's a fear of letting go,
Mhm.
and I see a lot of times again strong entrepreneurs. You got 100 or 200 people. You've built the business making a lot of the decisions. You've
Mm,
tried to delegate, you've tried to empower, but you bring people in and they can't think like you.
mm,
So you're too quick to grab the reins back. And it's just easier in your mind. It's just easier for you to make the decisions and tell people what to do and kind of be that all knowing leader. And it's worked. It's
mhm,
worked, but it gets to a point that again, for different leaders, it's going to be at different levels. Some I've seen can build, you know, pretty decent sized companies and make a really great living and be really significant and have hundreds of employees and give back tremendously in their communities by being the central hub. But again, at some point they get stuck. And so the mindset is really got to shift from doing it myself to
mm,
coaching others on how to do it. And I find that the area of opportunity is really creating more clarity around the accountability for either the project or the function in the company.
mm,
You think a company's run with a bunch of functions. We got a sales function, we got an operations function, or projects. We want to implement a new system, or we want to change the way we're going to market, or we want to roll out this new product. But getting real clear on what is the true accountability. In other words, how do we define winning in whatever it is that we're looking to do, and then letting go of how we get to winning
mm.
and drive ownership of the plan down to the executive that either owns the project or owns the function, and manage more closely to the outcomes that you have for the function or the project.
Yeah.
And it's hard to do. It takes continuous ongoing coaching, breaking those old habits, because the other thing that a lot of really strong leaders respond to is, well, they're not doing it the way I'd do it. So they get scared right off the bat and they want to jump in and again, grab the reins back from the person. So I just have found that just a maniacal focus on the accountabilities and getting them to think differently about what is it they're really accountable for, and discerning the difference between the accountable result
Mm.
and the work it takes to get the result is part of what helps to start to break that habit and get them to look at things differently, manage their team differently, lead differently, and start to break that habit of jumping in and grabbing the reins.
How do you coach a visionary entrepreneur who is struggling with delegation? And so then it looks like, here it is, take it. I'm completely hands off. Oh, but no, you're doing it wrong. So now I'm going to take it back. And so there's this like constant like stop and go for the team member where it just feels like they have too much freedom. They're lost, but no, now I have no freedom. And so I see that a lot with entrepreneurs. It's just like they're not sure how to delegate. So they're like, here it is. I'm just going to give you the whole thing. And then,
Yeah, where they abdicate instead of delegating, you mean? Yeah, because that's another problem, right? Let me just dump it on you. Now you failed. See, Mark, see how that doesn't work? Yeah. Yeah. We've been down that road a couple times as well too. I say you got to start in pockets, right? It's like anything else. You're looking to build a new belief around what is possible. So it starts with an idea. starts with a vision, right, of a different way to lead, getting buy-in to try it with the right person. And as a coach, I try to be really specific about who we are going to try it with. So I want to have a lot of confidence myself in that leader that we're investing in, and then getting the leader to let go and trust the process and prove it in a small area. Right? We're not betting the whole company. I'm not asking you to pivot the whole company on a dime here, but let's pick an area and let's test it. And let's see if it doesn't make your life easier. Let's see if it doesn't make that employee happier. And let's see if we don't get better results working through that process.
Okay, so let's say that I have niched down, I've mastered delegation. What else? What's my next roadblock gonna be? What's gonna be the thing that's gonna be holding me back from building the business of my dreams?
Well, I don't, well, good question. I'm not sure that those are one and done. I think it's a constant, never ending pursuit. It's kind of like an athlete that says, okay, I'm in shape now. What's next? I mean, you're always working on improving, your ability to react and your strength and your endurance and ability to compete over long periods of time. And in building a business, it's very much the same thing. So if you think, if we're going to niche, it's a constant focus on strategy. Like there's been a lot written on Tim Cook now. Something that I did not realize is that he has created the most market value of any CEO in history. He took Apple from 300 billion to over 4 trillion. Now Satya Nadella at Microsoft is right behind him. But he's the complete opposite of a Steve Jobs, right? And what we thought of as a Steve Jobs. And so it's interesting seeing that transition and what he's been able to do. But there was an article about his patience as a
Mm,
leader. And they were talking about Apple Pay, and that Apple Pay was years of just kind of a struggling initiative at Apple. But Tim Cook stayed true to that strategy, right? And if you think about that, they own all these phones, they own all these devices, and you think just getting a very small piece of all these transactions. And I don't know if you're an Apple person or not, but I use Apple Pay a lot today.
I know.
3 years ago, I probably never used Apple Pay.
Same.
Now they're getting a little teeny piece, but it's delivering hundreds of millions of dollars in profitability to the bottom line today. So, that continuing to niche, continuing to find ways to lever what makes us unique and valuable, to add value to the marketplace, to turn our economic engine is something that never ends. On the empowerment side or the delegation side, building a great team starts with, first, I got to let go and become a general manager or a coach. If I want to think of a sports analogy, the one thing that you never see in sports is you never see a coach tell their hitter, "Hey, sit down. I'm gonna go in and take this at bat because I know I can get us on base." I mean, it would just never happen. Number one, they're not as good because they're out of their prime. But two, you couldn't do that. It'd be against the rules. Well, in business, the problem is the coach, in this case, the leader of the company, can say, "Hey, VP of sales, sit back," or chief human resource, "I'm going to jump in and handle this situation because I can think it, do it better." But to really scale, I've got to get out and become the architect of building a great organization. And it's not a one and done. It's a constant, managing my chess pieces. Where do I have the right people? Where's my next acquisition? How are those people going to fill in? Which of my existing teams going to go there? Which team's going to come back here? I mean, that's going to dominate a big part of the time that's invested in the company. So having that kind of continuous improvement mindset is what enables those organizations to continue to scale.
Oh, that's good. So good. Okay, so is it okay if I ask you a little bit about your family?
Sure.
We talk about that? Because correct me if I'm wrong, but your wife, your daughter, and your son are all entrepreneurs?
Everybody's entrepreneurs. Yep.
Okay, so this is so fascinating to me. What did you guys do to cultivate that kind of mindset and family culture? Because I love that entrepreneurial thinking. We try to help cultivate that in our family, but I'm so fascinated. Like, what do you think that you guys did for your kids that really encouraged them, inspired them to become entrepreneurs?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't, I don't, that certainly was not a goal. We did have a goal. Our goal was to raise confident kids. I mean, we
Mm,
just felt if we could give them confidence,
mm,
and we were really intentional about it, and we had a vision for it, and we practiced it, and we had ways that we responded to their challenges and ways that we put them in challenges, and um, ways that we parented, and things we didn't do because we wanted them to, go through difficult times and deal with that challenge when they were young, and in the safety net of a home, and could recover. And so I think that was part of it. And then they just chose to pursue that path. Now, my wife has always been a top director in the Mary Kay cosmetics business.
mm,
Her mom was a top director and retired and did very well. My wife has done very well. So my daughter kind of had that vision
mm.
as a young girl that she was going to follow mom and grandma and go do what they've done. And so she's always just, that was probably never even considered her getting a job.
Yeah.
My son, on the other hand, he came out of Texas A&M and got a job in cybersecurity and was making really, really good money as a kid straight out of college. And he lasted, I think, 6 months. And him and a group of buddies went and started a marketing company. And today, I mean, what is he, 28 now? So he's been going 5 or 6 years. I mean, the kid's crushing it. And he loves controlling his own destiny and doing his own stuff. And so it's really fun. It's really fun to see.
That's awesome. So when you talk about cultivating confidence in your kids, what do you think are what is the key to doing that? What are some of the things that you guys did? Can you give me some examples?
Well, we really tried to teach them this belief that my wife and I both share, and that is that everything happens for a reason and it will serve us if we let us. So, whenever the inevitable, and by the way, let me just, in full disclosure, we are not very good at this. I think we're maybe better than most, but we really work hard at this, right? But life throws you some difficult challenges.
Mm,
So I don't want to act like, it's been perfect by any means. But we've really tried to, when we've gone through difficult times or when we're in the middle of difficult times, to stay resourceful, stay optimistic. We're a family of faith, believe that things are going to work out and that we're going to look back on this in maybe a not too distant future and see how it served us, see how we're
mm,
better because of the adversity. And so we would try to never waste a bad challenge and use an opportunity to look back and say, God, remember when we went through this a couple years ago, and look at what's happening. Look at what that's done for us today. So we've really tried to instill that mindset in them that it's not what happens to you, it's how you respond to what happens to you. And life doesn't happen to us, it happens for us if we will let it. If we'll let it and trust and keep moving forward and keep getting better. And so I think that's, not to sound too overly simplistic, but I just think that foundation, worked. I mean, we kind of stumbled upon that thinking early when our kids were really young, and it just kind of worked for us.
that thank you for sharing that. So when you think about do you mind me asking how old are your kids now?
My daughter's 30 and my son's 28.
Nice. And when you think about the culture that you guys cultivated in your home, what business ideas, business concepts, practices, habits did you bring into the family space? Was there anything that you used to kind of run your family with a little bit more structure, intention, clarity, alignment?
I'd love to say, that we had some grand plan. We really didn't. There was a thought leader we followed early in our marriage, Stephen Covey, that talked about the family. I can't remember if he called it the family mission statement.
Mm,
We always had great intentions of putting one in place. We never did. Now, my wife and I, we did do goal setting every year. It was a tradition on New Year's. I don't think the kids were really around that, and we weren't. It wasn't that we hit it, but it's not like we made it a big deal. But that was just kind of a thing that we always did to get centered and make sure we're on the same page and what do we want to accomplish this year and what are the things that are important to us as a family. But I think one thing that we really tried to instill was this concept of identity.
Mm,
And what does it mean to be a Fenner?
mm,
And so when they would mess up, which they did, I mean, they're kids. I mean, I mess up, right?
mhm,
I mean, and
mhm,
I'm old. I shouldn't mess up and I still mess up. But that question of is this what a Fenner does? I mean, that question, no. Well, what do you think a Fenner should have done? How should a Fenner respond to that? And that just I don't and I don't know really where that came from or, I don't think anybody taught it to us, but it just kind of became our way of setting a standard of behavior. And we never like sat down and said, here are our standards.
mhm.
But it was just the ideal of that, I think really, really worked. And we tended to do things different. We love doing family vacations and there were a lot, just the four of us, and we would go do crazy ski trips and we'd go get in trouble and spend time in the backwoods and have to hike out or somebody get stuck. I mean, we just had so many stories out of that that was just kind of we put ourselves into challenging situations and work our way out. That was kind of part of the whole confidence building thing. And so we kind of always had a line, that's just what we do, right? That's just who
Yeah.
we are. That's just what we do. So I think if we had structure, maybe that was. And then when the kids were in high school, I did every day before they would leave, I would say, I had two lines I used. Either one, go live today with passion, or you're going to live today with passion, which I borrowed from Tony Robbins, from some Tony Robbins workshops we went through way, way, many, many moons ago. And then the second one was, how can you add value to somebody today? Find somebody at school and find a way to add value. Okay, dad. They'd walk out the door, probably never did it. But I think over time, those little rituals that we did when they were young have stuck with them. They're both extremely positive. Continue to go through tough times. We'll take, our depending on the size of the setback, an hour or maybe a day to mourn it. And then it's okay. How are we moving forward? Okay. Well,
Mm.
what are we doing to get back out in front of this? What are we learning? What do we need to do next? What's the next action we can take? And, that's kind of my parenting 101 in a 5-minute clip for you there.
That's great. I love that. I love those two questions. I know that you've said that you're currently focused on helping create more companies that matter. What does that phrase mean to you and how is that showing up in the work that you're doing?
Yeah, great question. So I started Rise Performance Group in 2011. In all I knew was I wanted to serve CEOs of companies. And one of the first partnerships that I put in place was with John Maxwell in the John Maxwell Leadership Group. And John, he really taught me this idea of adding value to people, and that really the true measure of leadership is influence. And he taught me that, if you're more valuable, then you can influence more valuable people. Now, he didn't say it like that, but the point is, as we want to grow in our career, if I can add value to somebody making $100,000 a year, I mean, that's cool, right? I mean, there's a big opportunity there. But if I can add value to somebody making $1 million a year, that takes another level of competence. If I'm going to add value to somebody making 10 million a year,
Mm.
I got to be at another level. So it gave me a way of thinking about what are the kinds of people that I want to serve and that I want to be thought of as a person that can add value to them. And so I'm from Kansas City originally. And there's one of the entrepreneurs up there was a guy named Ewing Kaufman. He built a company called Marion Labs when I was growing up and then bought the Kansas City Royals. And when he passed away, he left, his legacy is the Kauffman Foundation, which is an organization kind of similar to, well, similar and different than EO or YPO, but they don't do the forms, but they're really about how do we serve entrepreneurs and help entrepreneurs grow. And one of the papers that they wrote that came out shortly after I started Rise Performance Group was called Becoming a Company That Matters. And the
Mm.
thesis behind that paper was that communities need these companies, and they defined a company that matters as a company that does over 100 million a year in
Mm.
top line revenue.
Mhm.
And of course, they need to be profitable and all that. It's not just about revenue. But his thesis in the article was really threefold. Number one, communities need these companies because they create a lot of wealth. You know, you've got the wealth of the founders, you've got the wealth of all the suppliers that come in and service it. It just brings a lot of dollars into your community that can be reinvested. Number two, maybe obvious, they create a lot of jobs, right? I mean, these are your big job producers in your economy. And then number three, they develop leaders that can go back out into the market and serve and add
Mm.
value and develop others. So I read that and I just connected with it and thought that's where I want to play. I want to be the coach that helps companies get over 100 million. So I've been grinding on that vision for about 10 years and it's hard. It's hard, because entrepreneurs that are that good, they're that good for a reason, right? But
Yeah.
I've got a handful of them that I've helped doing it. And I continue to grind on that vision and challenge myself as what are ways that we can add more value? What are more ways that my process can be more scalable? What are ways that I can reach those entrepreneurs to help them get over 100 million? So I'm at 12 right now. So I got a long way to go. My goal is 35 by 2035.
Nice.
And, I've helped two get over a billion, which is cool. And
Amazing.
by the way, and I'm going to say help is a very small helping, right? It's not
Yeah.
like I came into their lives and, these are very successful people, but I want to add value and be a key component to helping them get over and hit their goals. And so that's what that's do.
What's your advice to the entrepreneur who's scaling and they're concerned about keeping their purpose front and center and alive through this serious scaling process?
How do they keep it alive?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Being true to their purpose.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, it's easier to do when you're really small, but what I challenge them is don't let that become a fear that keeps you from double downing on growing. So that would be number one. Sometimes I think it's a limiting belief. It's a reason, right? Well, I'd
Mhm.
scale bigger, but I don't want to, I'm afraid I'm going to lose my culture, right?
Yeah.
It becomes a reason not to pursue becoming all you could be and all the impact. So part of it is framing it, what does that objection really mean? Number two is being intentional about focusing on it. I mean, there's no question if you were to become a international company with offices all over the world, holding that culture together and holding those two principles together is going to be very hard. But recently I like to point to what Satya Nadella did. He came in and took over Microsoft in 2014. And as you might know, Microsoft was flat under Steve Ballmer. Their market cap, if you invested 1,000 when Steve Ballmer came in, when Steve Ballmer retired 12 years later, your 1,000 was still worth 1,000. Satya came in and has taken Microsoft and taken that market cap, and he's right behind Tim Cook. So I think it was 400 or 500 billion then, and they're just at or right around 4 trillion. So similar numbers to Cook. But he says his own admission, one of the big levers that he's used, he's done some things right strategically, and he's made good decisions. But they really doubled down on that culture of being a learn it all versus a know it all
Mhm.
culture. And he really thought that was a constraint that was holding Microsoft back. So if he can come in and shift a culture with hundreds of thousands of employees, you know, have confidence that you can maintain the soul of your organization while you're getting there. Now, is it going to take intentional work? Yeah. Are you going to have to be intentional about it? Yes. Just like Satya was in driving that change from a know it all to a learn it all culture.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, can you tell us about your book?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm working on a book right now, and I'm taking the principles that I'm seeing in the marketplace and putting them into chapters. I've got 4 of the chapters written. I've got all of the chapters laid out, but I'm excited to get it done. I'm excited to get the book written and get it published.
When do you think it's gonna be out? When can
It's
we
gonna be
look
out
for
by
it?
I will have the book written by the end of the year.
So excited.
Yeah. So the title is gonna be Unlocking Profit Potential, Mastering the Hidden Secrets of Fortune, Freedom, and Fun.
I
And
love
so
that
it's all
so
about how
much.
do I build an organization that scales and scales profitably, and how do I do it in a way that creates freedom for
Mm,
the entrepreneur and freedom for the leadership team and fun.
yeah.
And so I've got 12 principles that I've laid out that will be um that'll be part of the book. So I'm excited to get it done.
Oh, man, it's gonna be so good. I know that. I can't wait to read it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah. Not
What
surprisingly, one of the chapters about culture,
Yeah.
and not surprisingly, one of the cultures about niche. One of it's about niching.
Mhm.
One's about building the right team and getting the team aligned. It's I see that a lot in my work as well. The owner is frustrated because I'm not, he or she is not generating the profits and the cash that
Mhm.
they want out of the business.
Yeah.
But the scoreboard that they give the employees, if they even have a good scoreboard, it's probably focused around revenue.
Mm,
So a lot of the decisions that the team is making is not in the best interests of profitability and cash generation. And so they're just missing an opportunity to have the team more closely aligned.
yeah. Oh, that's so good. Okay, what do you do to stay sharp and positive and grounded? Because, even in our short time together, I can just tell you're an incredible person to spend time with. You've got great energy. You've got a great mindset. What do you do to maintain that and make sure that it doesn't that that it's helping you show up as your best self?
Well, good question. I mean, I think we all battle, our minds. I believe our minds were developed thousands of years ago and they were developed to protect us. So what's wrong or what's scary or what could be a problem is always available, right? I mean, we don't have to teach that, right? I mean, that just comes natural to us and our mind wants to feed us stuff to protect us. Originally, that was developed to help protect us from scary animals that could kill us or other people that could kill us. Well, today we don't have people or scary things that are killing us, but we've got, disruption. We've got competition. We've got, these disempowering beliefs, these negative beliefs that keep us from living into our true selves that try to rob us. So I try to, going back to the identity, I really believe heavily in the power of identity. So, I stay focused. I use a 1-page personal growth plan, that I work on. I update it every quarter
Nice.
and I break myself into 3 areas: my professional life, my family life, and then my physical life. And I have an identity on each of those. And I do it. I'd like to tell you, I get up every morning and do this. I go through waves,
Mhm.
but about a decade ago, I really started this process and I was super intentional. I never missed a morning. And I would get up and I'd look at my identity, I'd look at my goals for the year and for the quarter. And then I'd say, what's one thing I'm going to do today to make major progress in this area or make sure I don't slip? And, like I want to be a great family man. I use this identity of the ultimate family man. And so, I can get caught up in myself. I can be very self-serving. I can, I can do a good job focusing on Mark and I can forget about Brenda and I can forget about the kids or forget about my mom. We just went and visited my mom yesterday and I thought, okay, I'm going to spend the day with her. How can I make this the best day
Mhm.
possible? So rather than just showing up and thinking I got emails to get to, I got work to get to. I really worked hard to commit to put all that aside. I'll tell you that's not easy for me.
Mhm.
When I
Mhm.
caught myself picking my phone up, I'm putting it back over. I mean, I'm addicted to the doggone thing just like our kids are.
Yeah.
But I really think that intentionality has helped me a lot. By no means am I perfect. I still make plenty of mistakes. But just that intentional living of, what is important to me And what's something that I can do each day to make sure that I live into that has been a little habit that I may not be as disciplined today as it writing it every morning,
Mhm.
but I certainly think it, and it's really become a good habit for me.
What's on the paper? What are the questions, categories, like, on that paper that you just held up? What
Well, I have my mission. I have what I feel are my top accountabilities. I've got my BHAG and my BHAG is around, as a coach. I got, why do I want it? And I've got three statements there that center around my purpose is, being able to do things with my family. I've got my three reasons I believe I can achieve what I put down. And then I've got my three different areas and I put my identity down. So, like in professional, it's to be the preeminent
Mm,
scaling up growth coach. I've got some big picture goals around that. I got quarterly goals and then I've got keep start stops and I do two or three per quarter. So just things I'm working on to work
mhm,
into my daily routine. I've got ultimate family man, which is all around, my family
mm,
and how do I protect, I've got this idea of creating magic moments with
mm,
my family and my kids and
yeah,
so when we're together, how do I get out of my world of worrying about work and what's on my phone and sports and other stuff and me, my interests
yeah.
and focus on them. And then I've got fitness and energy and in that I've got, a percentage body fat goal. I've got an A1C goal, which really is a diabetes measure that I've kind of got me into my health kick about 12 years ago. um, and then, what am I going to do and I measure those like on a week. I'm going to be at the gym at least 4 days a week. I'm going to keep body fat below this level. I'm not going to eat this junk.
Mm,
And
mm.
so that's what I use to drive me personally.
Oh, that's amazing. That is absolutely fantastic. I
It's kind
love
of structured. It's not overly structured, but it gives me enough structure that I stay true to who I wanna be, but it's not so rigorous that I just quit on it. It's too
Yeah,
much.
I love that. And how often do you update that piece of paper and reprint it?
Every quarter,
Oh, nice.
every 90 days. Yeah. So I run it on a 90-day plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun, and I can go back. I've got all of these saved, so, I mean, I've got goals that my wife and we've been married 32 years. I've got goals that first New Year's Eve. I've still got the notebook. We wrote our goals down that
Wow.
that night.
It's amazing.
So we've been, and again, we're not like every Sunday we look at our goals and we don't have a family meeting. We never had a family meeting that a lot of people do, which I think is a great idea. But we had enough intentionality that it's kept us on track with, what was important to us and what we wanted to do husband and wife and what we wanted to create with our kids, which is really cool now because we got our first grandchild.
Congratulations. A little
So we're
girl or boy?
planning what kind of environment do we want? What's grandparents camp gonna look like?
Oh,
What are we gonna do? What aren't we gonna do?
yeah.
We're not gonna do this as we're grandparents now. We're not parents. We're not here to raise our kids. We raised our kids. It's their job and their opportunity to go raise their kids now. We want to be grandparents. So we're kind of defining what does it mean to be a grandparent,
Mhm.
right? And so we're just, we're trying to get all that stuff figured out.
It's so exciting. Is it a little girl or a boy?
Little girl, she's
Oh.
1. Yeah, Emma Dean. Yeah, we
Oh,
just stopped by. We
beautiful
just flew
name.
back from my mom's, and it's my daughter-in-law's birthday today, so we took her donuts.
Oh,
I wasn't excited about donuts, but she loves donuts, so we took her donuts and saw Emma, and she's walking and kicking a soccer ball, and I mean, that stuff's just unbelievable. It's pretty cool.
that's sweet. That's so
Yeah.
sweet. Okay, are you up for a couple rapid fire questions?
Sure.
Okay. One thing that you have stopped doing that has made a big difference in your life?
I've stopped eating carbohydrates for breakfast, and I do almost all protein. I used to think eating um, oatmeal
Mm,
and fruits on it was good.
mhm.
And I went to a dietary coach. It's probably been 5 or 6 years ago. And she convinced me to go to a higher protein. I don't need any of that stuff anymore. And I
Mm.
took body fat. Plus, I was working out, but I took body fat from like 19% down. At one point, I was below 10. I think I'm around 11 or 12 now. So that really transformed me.
Yeah.
Um, professionally, was your question one thing I no longer do?
Yeah, one thing that you've stopped doing.
You know, God, I feel like there's a lot. I tend to focus on what I do versus what I
Mm,
don't do. But I feel like I have really worked hard on delegation
mm,
myself. So I've got
mhm,
2 assistants. So I no longer do anything on my calendar.
mm,
And it's just even a simple reschedule. I had a client that I was supposed to meet today for lunch, couldn't make it, wanted to reschedule. I just copied Gene. Gene, will you work with him and get this rescheduled?
mhm,
And it's just, in my and I've got a client that would argue, well, Mark, I can do it so quick. And I'm like, but yesterday was my day with my mom. I
mhm.
got that note when early in the morning before anybody was up. But it's like, I didn't wanna so I
Yeah.
just don't do any of that stuff anymore, and it's so freeing. I went through the whole day yesterday and never had one call or one thing that I
Mm,
had to deal with because I think I've delegated so much stuff off, or I've got a system that handles it,
mm.
or I've set the right expectations, and I really it's, 1, made what I do so enjoyable, but 2, I think it's just really helped my effectiveness as well.
Yeah, no, that's great. I love that. Okay. Most impactful book that you've read?
Oh my gosh. Man, there's a lot of um, really good books out there. I'm reading a book right now. When I was with John Maxwell all the time, they used to always he's written over 100 books, and I'd say,
Yeah.
"What's your favorite book?" And his answer was always the one I'm writing right now. And I just read this book I love, and it's called The Three Vital Questions
Uh,
by David Emerald. He wrote the book, The Power of TED, which
mhm.
I think is a horrible title because I always thought it was a TED Talk he was talking about. But TED is the empowerment dynamic, and he is putting into words in the three vital questions what I try so hard to teach. And he's come up with this idea of some people, he's kind of boiled us all down into two camps. We're either problem oriented or we're outcome and opportunity oriented. And his argument is that the people that are problem oriented, when we look at problems drive an emotion, probably anxiety, fear, frustration, and that emotion causes us to take some action. It does cause us to take some action, and we probably make some progress on the problem. But as soon as the anxiety, his argument is we're really motivated to move away from the negative emotion, not the problem. So as we make progress, the anxiety or the frustration goes
Mm,
down, we lighten up on the action. And so it feels good for a period of time, and then boom, the problem
mm,
pops back up versus those that are outcome or opportunity oriented
mm,
are driven by the vision of what we want to accomplish. That creates a state of excitement,
mm,
empowerment. I call it resourcefulness.
mm,
The action we take as a result of that is tends to come from a better place.
mm,
So it creates more of a virtuous cycle. Now there's going to be ups and downs, but over time it's a virtuous cycle. And I just feel like this major aha
mm,
has gone off of me. So now I'm just hyping this book to all my clients. They got to read it and they got to understand where are you feeding this problem mentality? Because, as a coach, I've got some clients, a few I might say that just kind of
mm,
quote unquote up and to the right.
mhm,
And then I've got some that we just recycle problems. And I just really think it's this problem orientation. So, I'm telling clients no longer, we've got to start with strong vision. So I'm on
mhm,
this kick of strengthening their
mm,
vision casting
mm,
at the beginning of any meeting I'm in, but then in all the meetings I'm not in, and starting from that opportunity orientation and working backwards and not getting focused on problems. Now we got to fix problems,
mhm.
but we got to fix the right ones that are going to move us towards our goals and delegate the other ones that we shouldn't even be on our radar screen. So that's the book I'm the most hyped about right now that's, consuming a lot of my timing. I don't know if I would say it's been the most, transformational. I will give one other one, though, and I think it's this book, Outlive by Peter
Mhm.
Attia,
Yeah,
is a fantastic read. Probably don't preach it as much because not everybody is into health and longevity like I am, but I do think that book, the way he's written it is really, really good. So I gave you 2.
that's great. David Emerald was one of my mentors and good friends.
Pass on that, he doesn't have any idea who I am, and he's been around our coaching, you know, through scaling up coaches for so long, and, his The Power of Ted, I just kept putting that book aside. People talk about it, and even though they tell me it wasn't about doing TED Talks, I just couldn't get over the title until I
Yeah,
read the 3 Vital Questions, and I'm like, "Oh my god, how have I been missing this
yeah,
all this time?"
yeah. Yeah, he passed away about a year ago.
I did not
I
know
know,
that,
I
Ann.
know.
My gosh.
And, but I got to learn from him and, um, his former partner, Donna, and, we actually teach the 3 Vital Questions empowerment dynamic framework in our couples program. So,
Do you really?
yeah, so I
I've
love
got my daughter reading it right now.
so
She's the
good.
one that's the
Mhm.
Mary Kay sales director, and she's having some challenges. Her and her husband are trying to start a family, and it's not going up and to the right.
Mhm.
And so I said, I want you to read this, and I want you to think about the girls you work with, and so I'm
Mhm.
just testing it with her. Her and I go back and forth on content sometimes, and
Yeah,
how can we teach it? And how can we test it? But, oh, I'm so sorry to hear
I know.
that he passed.
Man,
Because
he was
when
brilliant.
did the 3 Vital Questions come out?
It's been a while, but it was definitely after Power of Ted. Yeah,
Yeah.
3 Vital Questions came out after, and then, yeah, he passed away about a year ago.
Well, maybe you can help me, get really good at teaching it.
Yeah, and there's actually a course, a certification program, so if want
I
some information
saw that when I
yes.
was looking through it. So do you teach the certification?
I don't teach the certification, but I'm certified to teach the content.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just, we were just talking, and my daughter's got a super psychology. I mean, like, she got some really bad news on Monday.
Oh,
And, like I said, I mean, she was down, and then she came
yeah,
over here, and, we mourned it for a short period of time. And then it's like, let's get back on the bike.
yeah,
What are we going to do different? Let's stay resourceful. Let's keep this thing in perspective. What's next? I
yeah,
mean, let's not, we know what's going to happen, right? Let's
yeah,
not let
yeah,
this define us. And I don't have to say all this with her, but I feel like that so many people just waller in their
yeah,
problems, and it's frustrating. It's hard to coach those people because they
mhm,
just and if you think the counseling industry is built off people that want you to come in and tell them their problems because they never go away. And I
mhm.
can I can be your client for decades, and we can keep talking and recirculating the same problems over and over and over again.
Yeah, yeah,
So it's kind of created this doom loop in our society, and plus our society, people wanna blame everything on somebody else, everything's always somebody else's problem. I
mhm.
shouldn't say every and all the time, but a lot of people,
That was me
you
before I read the book. Yeah, that was 1,000% me. Yeah. Okay, what about something that you do that helps create better relationships?
um, I really try to focus on adding value to people. So I try to find a way to serve those that I'm around, in personally or professionally or even family, others. And I just think that's, again, I just think as human beings, we become self-centered, and it's so easy to focus on ourselves and what am I getting and what aren't I getting, and why should I like you or why shouldn't I like you, instead of how can I help you? And it just feels like if I can come from that framework, good things come from it. And
Mhm.
again, I'm not perfect in this area,
Yeah.
but it's something that I try to be intentional with.
Great. Okay, last rapid fire question. What's a question that people should be asking themselves regularly or more often?
I think it's what do I really want?
Yep.
What do why am I doing this?
Mhm.
I'll tell you, Ann, I tend to coach people more in business than I do personally. But when I'll start working with a client, we're doing all this, and I love the quote. So why are we doing it? What are we
Mm,
hoping to get out of that?
mhm.
And it's scary, kind of the lack of clarity on why
Mm,
are we doing all this stuff.
yeah.
And I see it in people's lives. I don't coach as much because I don't do personal coaching there, but certainly with my family. So why are we doing this? What are we hoping to get out of this?
Mm.
What's the outcome? Is it going to make us happier? Are we going to have better times together? We're going to be closer. It's going to help us grow, help us learn. So I just think, clarity. What do I really want?
Yeah. Yeah. It's great. Okay, before we wrap up, any final message that you want to leave with the listener? If they were to just take one thing away from our conversation today, what is that? What is that thing that you hope they remember?
Wow. Well, we covered a lot, but I think, I think if you want to grow personally or in your career, just find a way to add value to
Mm,
others. And the only way you can add value is to become more valuable.
mm,
My daughter sent me I'll tell you one more quick story. She sent me a sales training course. It's probably been 2 or 3 years ago. She's like, Dad, should I take this? It's $5,000. It's a lot of money. Will you look over this and see if I should take it? And so she sent it to me. And I just asked her one question. I said, Caitlin, do you think you're worth $5,000? And if you think you are, take the course. If you don't think you are, don't take the course. And so if we want to become more valuable, we got to invest in ourselves. If I want to help more successful people, I got to become more valuable. I've got to invest in myself. So I really think that North Star is how can I add value and how can I continue to add value to more and more successful people has been kind of a North Star for me, and I hope it'll serve others that are listening today.
that's great. Thank you so much for spending time with us today. It's been phenomenal having you on the show.
Okay, thanks, Ann.
Thanks for tuning in to Empowered Living. I hope today's conversation sparked some inspiration and gave you tools to live more intentionally in your family, work, and life. If you enjoyed our episode today, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an inspiring story or actionable takeaway. And if you know someone who would love this episode, share it with them. Because living an intentional life is better when we do it together. Until next time, remember, the life you want doesn't happen by chance, it happens by choice. Let's keep creating it one step at a time.